The Pentagon has confirmed that Iran fired over 500 ballistic missiles and over 2,000 drones since Operation Epic Fury began on February the 28th. It has confirmed the number of targets struck. It has confirmed the weapon systems used by American forces. What it has not confirmed, and what no senior American official has addressed directly in any press briefing, is a question that has significant implications for every American military base in the Middle East, every U.S. Navy vessel in the Persian Gulf, and the fundamental assumption underlying 30 years of American missile defense investment. The question is this: does the missile defense architecture the United States has spent hundreds of billions of dollars building actually work against the weapons Iran is now firing? And based on what happened over Israel earlier this month, the honest answer is more complicated than the Pentagon wants to discuss publicly. This video is going to walk through exactly what Iran's most advanced missile systems are, what makes them different from the threat American missile defenses were designed to defeat, what a Chinese military research paper published on March the 7th said about the vulnerability of American defense systems to exactly this type of weapon, and what the Demona interception failure last weekend tells you about whether those Chinese researchers were right. None of this is speculation. Every technical detail in this video is sourced from Western defense analysts, official Iranian weapons documentation, and peer-reviewed military research. The question is not whether Iran has impressive missiles. The question is whether America's defenses can reliably stop them. And right now, that question does not have a clean answer. Let us start with what Iran actually has, and what the word hypersonic actually means in this context, because the coverage has been consistently imprecise on this point in a way that matters for understanding the real threat. Iran has two missiles it calls hypersonic: the FATA-1, unveiled in June 2023, and the FATA-2, unveiled in November 2023. Iran claims both can reach speeds of Mach 13 to Mach 15, and that their maneuverability makes them effectively impossible to intercept. Those specific claims are disputed by Western analysts and should be treated with significant skepticism. But here is the important nuance that most coverage misses entirely. The fact that Iran's hypersonic claims are exaggerated does not mean the underlying threat is not real. It means the threat is different from what Iran describes, and understanding exactly how it is different is what tells you whether American defenses can handle it. Fabian Heinz, Research Fellow for Defense and Military Analysis at the International Institute for Strategic Studies, is the most cited Western expert on Iranian missile capabilities. His assessment of the FATA series is precise and worth understanding in full. He says the FATA is not a hypersonic glide vehicle in the way that Russia's Avangard or China's DF-17 are hypersonic glide vehicles. Those systems separate from their boost stage and glide through the atmosphere on unpredictable trajectories at sustained hypersonic speeds. The FATA instead uses a conventional ballistic missile first stage derived from the Khaybar-Shikan booster, and then incorporates a second solid-fuel post-boost propulsion motor inside the reentry vehicle itself. That motor fires after the main booster burns out and the warhead has separated. It allows the FATA's warhead to make significant maneuvers in the terminal phase of flight, the final seconds before impact, using a combination of aerodynamic control surfaces and thrust vector control. Heinz describes it as a maneuverable reentry vehicle, not a true hypersonic weapon. But here is why that distinction matters less than it sounds. Stay with me. Traditional ballistic missiles follow a predictable arc. They go up, they come down, and the trajectory they follow obeys physics in a way that American radar and fire control computers can model, predict, and intercept. Patriot and THAAD, the two primary American missile defense systems deployed in the Middle East, were both designed and optimized for exactly this threat. They solve what defense engineers call the geometric prediction problem. Where will this warhead be at a specific point in the future, and how do we put an interceptor there? The answer to that problem is relatively straightforward. When the warhead follows a predictable ballistic arc, it becomes significantly harder when the warhead can change its trajectory in the terminal phase. The FATA's post-boost motor enables exactly that. Even maneuvers that are not as dramatic as a true hypersonic glide vehicle create a problem for fire control computers that must continuously update their intercept solution as the target moves unpredictably. The more aggressive the maneuver, the less accurate the initial fire control solution, and the more interceptors must be fired to ensure a kill. And this is where the Chinese research paper published on March the 7th becomes relevant to American audiences specifically. Researchers from the Northwest Institute of Nuclear Technology in China, led by Liao Longwen, published a study in the journal Tactical Missile Technology, concluding that the speed, maneuverability, and low-altitude flight profile of hypersonic weapons make them particularly difficult for existing American missile defense systems to intercept. Their specific conclusion was that the United States currently relies on two broad categories of missile defense: systems designed for high-altitude ballistic intercept like THAAD, and systems designed for lower-altitude terminal defense like Patriot. Neither category was designed with maneuvering reentry vehicles or hypersonic glide profiles as the primary design requirement. The study concluded that significant gaps exist in American defensive coverage against weapons that combine speed with terminal maneuverability. The Pentagon did not respond to this study publicly. China published it 2 weeks into the largest American military engagement in the Middle East in 2 decades, at a moment when Iran was actively firing maneuvering missiles at American defended positions. The timing of that publication was not coincidental. Now here is where this stops being a theoretical discussion and becomes a question about what happened on the ground. And this is the part the Pentagon has been most careful to say as little as possible about. On March the 21st, Iranian ballistic missiles struck the Israeli city of Demona and the nearby city of Arad. The Israeli Air Force confirmed that interceptors were launched against both incoming missiles. Both interceptors missed. The missiles hit residential areas approximately 10 kilometers from Israel's main nuclear research center. The Israeli Air Force said in a statement that the failure to intercept the missiles in both cases was not a systemic problem and that the circumstances in each case were unrelated. Danny Citrinowicz, a senior fellow on Iran at Israel's Institute for National Security Studies, said publicly that the strikes demonstrated effective command and control with strategic guidance translating into precise operational execution. 2 different Israeli sources offering 2 completely different explanations for the same 2 interception failures in the same location within 2 hours of each other. The Patriot system deployed around Demona is one of the most capable air defense configurations the United States has provided to any ally. If the interception failures at Demona were the result of Iranian missiles maneuvering in the terminal phase in a way that made the fire control solution unreliable, that is not a coincidence. That is a demonstration. And the silence from the Pentagon about the specific technical reason for those failures is louder than anything that has been said publicly. Here is the cost dimension that puts all of this in perspective for American taxpayers. The United States has been studying how to build a dedicated hypersonic defense system for years. No operational hardware has yet been deployed. Initial cost estimates for a comprehensive hypersonic defense architecture have varied widely, but some projections suggest the program could exceed $500 billion. Even under the most optimistic timelines, early demonstrations of the concept are unlikely before the end of the decade. The Patriot interceptor missile costs approximately $4 million per unit. The THAAD interceptor costs approximately $11 million. Iran's FATA-1, whatever its actual capabilities, costs a fraction of either. Every time an American or Israeli interceptor is fired at an Iranian maneuvering warhead and misses, the cost asymmetry runs entirely in Iran's favor. And every interceptor fired is one fewer available for the next salvo. There is one more piece of this picture that has received almost no coverage in American media. The technology that enables Iran's maneuvering reentry vehicles did not originate in Iran. According to Iran Watch, the nonprofit proliferation research organization, Iran obtained maneuverable reentry vehicle technology from North Korea in the 1990s. North Korea had acquired and reverse-engineered Soviet-era guidance technology and sold both hardware and technical knowledge to Iran as part of a broader ballistic missile cooperation relationship. North Korea reached a landmark in 2024 with the service entry of the Hwasong-16B intermediate range, ballistic missile equipped with a hypersonic glide vehicle. The lineage from Soviet technology to North Korean development to Iranian deployment is a thread that runs through every advanced maneuvering warhead Iran currently fields. And it is a thread that connects directly to the question of where Iran's missile program goes next, because North Korea's development roadmap is several steps ahead of where Iran is today. Here is what the expectations were before this conflict began, and what 24 days of combat has revealed about the gap between those expectations and reality. The expectation was that American missile defense systems deployed across the Middle East provided reliable protection for American forces and allied populations against Iranian ballistic missiles. The reality is that Iranian missiles penetrated the air defense umbrella around Demona. one of the most defended locations in Israel, twice in 2 hours. And the official explanation from the Israeli military was coincidence. The expectation was that Iran's hypersonic missile claims were largely propaganda, and that its actual maneuvering capabilities were limited and unproven in combat. The reality is that Iran used the FATA series in the 12-day war last June, claimed successful penetrations of Israeli missile defense layers, and Western analysts have not publicly disputed those specific claims. The expectation was that America's multi-layered missile defense architecture, comprising Patriot, THAAD, Arrow, and David's Sling, would provide overlapping coverage capable of intercepting any Iranian missile threat. The reality is that a Chinese research paper published in the middle of this conflict concluded that gaps exist in that coverage against maneuvering hypersonic weapons, and the Pentagon chose not to respond to it publicly. The expectation was that the $500 billion hypersonic defense gap was a future problem to be solved before the next conflict. The reality is that the next conflict started before the solution was built. None of this means Iran's missiles are unstoppable. Most Iranian missiles fired in this conflict have been intercepted. American and Israeli missile defense has performed significantly better than many analysts predicted. But the Demona failures, the Pentagon's silence on specific interception performance data, and the cost trajectory of Iranian maneuvering warheads versus American interceptors are questions that deserve a direct public answer. The American public has paid for those defense systems. They deserve to know whether they work against the threat that is actually being fired at American assets right now. What do you think the Pentagon is not telling us about the Demona interceptions? Drop it in the comments. This is Global Conflicts Dispatch. Subscribe. Back tomorrow.